The scent of grilled burgers and freshly cut grass usually filled me with a sense of contentment, the soundtrack of summer family gatherings. But on that day, it became the backdrop to a nightmare. The sound of children's laughter, which had been a constant, joyful hum all afternoon, seemed to curdle in the air. I was inside, refilling a bowl of potato salad, when a sudden piercing silence from the backyard pricked my attention. It was the kind of quiet that every parent dreads, the abrupt absence of noise that means something has gone wrong. I set the bowl down, my heart starting a low, anxious drumbeat against my ribs. "Olivia?" I called out, walking toward the sliding glass door. "Everything okay out there?" There was no answer. I stepped onto the patio, scanning the yard. My nephews were huddled near the old oak tree, whispering among themselves with wide, guilty eyes. My brother-in-law was engrossed in a conversation with my father by the grill. But my daughter, my 8-year-old Olivia, was nowhere in sight. A knot of dread tightened in my stomach. I found her tucked away behind the large azalea bushes that lined the side of the house, her small body shaking with sobs she was trying desperately to muffle. Her face was buried in her hands, and my first thought was that she had fallen and scraped a knee, a familiar childhood mishap. "Oh, honey, what is it? What happened?" I murmured, kneeling beside her and wrapping my arms around her. She resisted, shaking her head fiercely, refusing to show me her face. And that's when I saw it. Scattered on the grass around her were gleaming strands of golden brown hair, the color of rich honey in the afternoon sun. My breath hitched. It was Olivia's hair. Her beautiful waist-length hair that we had spent years growing, that we brushed together every night in a ritual of quiet connection. It was her pride and joy. With a gentle but firm hand, I tilted her chin up. The sight stole the air from my lungs. One side of her head was a jagged, mangled mess. A huge chunk of her hair was gone, hacked off crudely with what looked like craft scissors. The remaining locks were uneven, some cut down to the scalp, others left in clumsy, blunt tufts. It was a violation, a butchering. Tears streamed down her blotchy cheeks. "He cut it, Mommy," she whispered, her voice cracking with a pain that went far beyond the physical loss of her hair. He said girls shouldn't have long hair. And then, before she could finish, I heard a snort of laughter from the patio. I turned my head, my blood running cold. It was my sister, Susan. She was standing with her arms crossed, a smirk playing on her lips as she watched us. Her son, a boisterous 10-year-old, stood beside her, holding a pair of bright green safety scissors. "Oh, for heaven's sake, Clara, don't be so dramatic," Susan said, her voice loud enough for half the party to hear. "It's just hair. It'll grow back." She then let out a full, throaty laugh, a sound devoid of any empathy or concern. "It's actually pretty funny. Look at her. She looks like a little punk rocker." Her laughter echoed in the sudden quiet of the yard. It felt like a physical blow. I looked from the scissors in my nephew's hand to the triumphant look on his face, and then to my sister, who was not just condoning his cruelty but celebrating it. In that moment, something inside me fractured. I looked down at my weeping daughter, at the tangible evidence of this casual act of malice, and I knew that this was not something that could be fixed with a simple apology. It wasn't just hair. It was a piece of my daughter's identity, and my sister had laughed as it was destroyed. The world seemed to narrow until it contained only 3 things: Olivia's heartbroken sobs, the glint of the scissors in my nephew's hand, and the sound of my sister's mocking laughter. For a heartbeat, I was frozen, paralyzed by a disbelief so profound it felt like a physical weight. I had always known Susan could be thoughtless, even sharp-tongued, but this was a different territory entirely. This was cruelty, pure and simple, and the casualness of it was what twisted the knife. My own shock quickly burned away, replaced by a white-hot rage that surged through me with the force of a tidal wave. I gathered Olivia into my arms, holding her trembling body close to mine, and stood up. My movements felt stiff, robotic. I fixed my gaze on Susan, my eyes locking with hers across the manicured lawn. The smirk on her face faltered slightly as she saw the expression on mine. "Get him away from us," I said, my voice dangerously low and steady. It didn't sound like my own. It was flat, devoid of the hysteria I felt inside, which somehow made it more menacing. Susan's defensiveness flared instantly. "Oh, come on, Clara, it was a prank. Kids will be kids. Right, sweetie?" she said, ruffling her son's hair. He beamed up at her, puffed up with a sense of accomplishment. The sight made my stomach churn. "Kids will be kids?" I repeated, taking a slow step forward. I could feel the eyes of the entire party on us now. The cheerful chatter had died completely. He took a pair of scissors to my daughter's head. "Susan," He mutilated her. And you stood there and laughed. You laughed while she cried. Mutilated? Don't you think you're overreacting just a little? She scoffed, though a flicker of unease crossed her face. I'll buy her a hat. What's the big deal? The big deal, I began, my voice rising despite my efforts to control it, is that my daughter is in pain, and you find it amusing. The big deal is that your son felt entitled to hurt her, and you are teaching him that it's okay, that it's funny. I turned my gaze to my nephew. Did you think this was funny? I asked him directly. He shrank back behind his mother's legs, the bravado vanishing under my direct stare. He didn't mean anything by it, Susan snapped, pulling him closer to her. You're just trying to make him feel bad. It's what you always do, Clara. You make everything into a drama. My own mother, a woman who notoriously avoided conflict, started to make her way toward us. Now, let's all just calm down, she said placatingly. We're a family. Let's not fight. But her words were like gasoline on a fire. I turned to her, my expression unyielding. A family doesn't do this, I said, gesturing from Olivia, who was now crying silently against my shoulder, to Susan, who was still glaring at me with self-righteous indignation. A family doesn't hurt each other for sport. They don't find joy in someone else's humiliation. I looked back at Susan, and in that moment, years of her casual dismissals, her passive-aggressive comments, and her subtle digs all coalesced into this one unforgivable act. This wasn't an isolated incident. It was the culmination of a lifetime of her believing she could act without consequences. This is over, Susan, I said, the decision settling in my heart with the weight of a stone. Not just this conversation, us. We're done. Susan's jaw dropped. What are you talking about? You're going to throw away our relationship over a bad haircut? It was never about the hair, I said, my voice finally breaking with the emotion I had been suppressing. It's about the fact that you looked at my child's pain and you laughed. You showed me exactly who you are, and I don't want that person anywhere near me or my daughter ever again. I turned without waiting for a response, holding Olivia tightly, and walked toward the house. The party was over for us. But as I walked away, I knew something much bigger had ended too. I didn't look back. I couldn't. If I had, I might have seen the shock on my father's face, or my mother's hand flying to her mouth. I might have seen the flicker of genuine hurt or fury in Susan's eyes that would have complicated the pure, righteous anger that was fueling me. Right then, I needed that anger. It was a shield, protecting both me and the precious, fragile girl in my arms. I walked through the house, past the table laden with food that now seemed obscene in its cheerfulness, and out the front door. The slam of it closing behind us was a period on a sentence I never thought I'd write. I buckled a still sniffling Olivia into her car seat, my hands moving with practiced efficiency while my mind raced. The drive home was shrouded in a heavy silence, broken only by the occasional shuddering breath Olivia took as she tried to calm herself. I glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Her eyes were red and swollen, fixed on her own reflection in the passenger side window. She reached up and touched the butchered side of her hair, her small fingers tracing the jagged edges, and a fresh wave of tears spilled down her cheeks. "It's all gone, Mommy," she whispered, her voice so small it was barely audible over the hum of the engine. My heart ached with a ferocity that was almost physical. I pulled the car over to the side of the road, stopping under the shade of a sprawling elm tree. I turned in my seat to face her properly. "Look at me, sweetie," I said gently. She slowly turned her gaze from the window to me. "Your hair will grow back. I promise you it will. It will be just as long and beautiful as it was before. But that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that you are kind and you are brave and you have a good heart. Your hair doesn't change that. Nothing can ever change that. Do you understand?" She nodded, a single tear rolling down her nose and dropping onto her t-shirt. But why did he do it? And why did Aunt Susan laugh? This was the question I had been dreading. How do you explain casual cruelty to an 8-year-old? "Because, honey," I said, choosing my words carefully, "some people, they don't think before they act. And sometimes they think hurting someone is a funny joke. They are wrong. It is never ever funny to make someone else feel sad. What your cousin did was wrong. And what Aunt Susan did, by laughing, that was even more wrong." "Is she mad at me?" Olivia asked, her voice trembling. "No, baby." "Oh no," I said, reaching back to squeeze her hand. "She is not mad at you. She is mad because I stood up for you. And I will always, always stand up for you." That seemed to be enough for her, for now. She leaned her head back against the seat, her exhaustion finally overtaking the storm of her emotions. By the time we pulled into our driveway, my phone had begun to buzz incessantly in my purse. I saw Susan's name flash on the screen, followed by my mother's, then my brother-in-law's. I silenced it and left it in the car. They could wait. My priority was right here. Inside, I led Olivia straight to the bathroom. For the first time, under the bright, unforgiving vanity lights, we both got a clear look at the damage. It was worse than I had realized in the dappled sunlight of the backyard. A huge section was gone, right down to the scalp in some places. It was unsalvageable. There would be no clever combing over, no strategic clips to hide the gap. Olivia stared at her reflection, her lower lip beginning to tremble again. Before the tears could fall, I knelt behind her, pulling her back against my chest and looking at our reflections together. "Well," I said, forcing a brightness into my tone I did not feel. "This gives us an opportunity." She looked at me, confused. "We get to try something new," I declared. "Something bold and fun. Tomorrow, you and I are going to the best salon in town. We're going to get you a super chic, super cool new haircut. A pixie cut, maybe? Or a cute bob? We'll make it a day of it. We'll get ice cream afterwards. It'll be our special day." A tiny spark flickered in her eyes. "A new haircut?" "A brand new one," I confirmed, smiling at her in the mirror. A fresh start. It was a promise to her and to myself. We would take their ugly, hateful act and we would turn it into something beautiful. The next morning, I was a woman on a mission. I silenced my phone again, ignoring the barrage of notifications that had accumulated overnight. They were a problem for later. Today was about Olivia. I booked an appointment at a high-end salon downtown, the kind of place that served little sparkling juices to its clients and had magazines on the tables that didn't have crumpled pages. I wanted her to feel pampered and special, to overwrite the memory of yesterday's violation with one of indulgence and care. When I told Olivia where we were going, she was hesitant. The trauma was still fresh, and the idea of someone else coming near her with scissors was understandably terrifying. "Will they have to cut more?" she asked, her hand instinctively going to the shorter, undamaged side of her hair. "They will," I said, sitting on the edge of her bed. "But this time, it will be different. It will be on our terms. We'll be in charge. We'll tell them exactly what we want, and they will listen. It's about taking back the power, honey. We're not letting them have the final say on your story or your hair." That seemed to resonate with her. The idea of being in control was a powerful antidote to the helplessness she had felt. She agreed, and a few hours later, we were sitting side by side in plush salon chairs. The stylist, a kind woman named Maria, with a warm smile and gentle hands, listened patiently as I explained the situation in a low voice while Olivia sipped on an apple juice. Maria's expression was one of pure empathy. She knelt down in front of Olivia. "I heard you're looking for a fresh, super cool start," she said, her voice soft. "I am an expert in fresh starts. How about we look at some pictures together and you can tell me what you think?" They spent the next 10 minutes flipping through a tablet, Olivia's initial nervousness slowly melting away as Maria showed her pictures of actresses and singers with chic, short hairstyles. They settled on a pixie cut, one that was slightly longer on top with soft, feathered bangs. Maria promised it would look incredibly Parisian and sophisticated. As the scissors began to snip, this time with precision and artistry, I held my breath. I watched Olivia's face in the mirror. She kept her eyes squeezed shut for the first few minutes, but then slowly, she opened them. She watched as the long, uneven strands fell away, replaced by a shape, a style. A transformation was happening, not just on her head, but in her eyes. The fear was receding, replaced by a tentative curiosity. When Maria was finished, she spun the chair around with a flourish. "Voila!" I stared, my heart swelling with emotion. My daughter was gone, and in her place was this stunning elfin creature. The cut framed her face perfectly, highlighting her large, expressive eyes and the delicate line of her jaw. It didn't look like a haircut born of necessity or damage. It looked intentional, confident, and unbelievably chic. Olivia's own eyes widened. She touched the short strands at the nape of her neck, a look of wonder on her face. A slow smile spread across her lips. "I look different," she said. "You look beautiful," I breathed, my own eyes getting misty. "You look like you." She beamed. It was the first genuine, unclouded smile I had seen from her since before the party. It was worth every penny, every missed phone call, every ounce of family drama that I knew was waiting for me. We paid, left Maria a generous tip, and went for the promised ice cream. Olivia, with her new haircut and a double scoop of mint chocolate chip, looked like a different child. She carried herself differently, her head held a little higher. We had taken their ugliness and spun it into gold. That evening, after Olivia was tucked into bed, I finally picked up my phone. 37 missed calls. A dozen angry, pleading, and guilt-tripping text messages. Most were from Susan, escalating from a flippant, "Are you serious?" to a long, rambling paragraph about how I was tearing the family apart over a childish squabble. My mother's messages were all variations of, "Please call me, we need to fix this." I decided to call my mother first. She answered on the first ring. "Clara, thank God. I've been so worried. How's Olivia?" "She's okay," I said, my voice tired but firm. "She has a new haircut. It's very cute." "Oh, good," she said, relieved. "See? It all worked out. Now you need to call your sister. Her feelings are very hurt." I almost laughed. "Her feelings are hurt? Mom, her son assaulted my daughter, and she laughed about it. Did you see what he did to Olivia's hair? It was horrific." "I know, dear. It wasn't a good thing to do. But you know how boys are. And Susan? Well, she doesn't always think. But she's your sister. You can't just cut her out of your life. Family is forever." "No, Mom, it's not," I said, the conviction in my own voice surprising me. "Family is a choice. We choose to love them, to support them, to be there for them. But it's not a blank check. It doesn't give them the right to be cruel and then demand forgiveness." Susan crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. This isn't up for debate. My decision is made. There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. I had never spoken to my mother this way before. But I had never felt this resolute before either. This was my line in the sand. For Olivia. For myself. My mother's silence on the phone that night was followed by weeks of a coordinated family campaign. It was a masterclass in emotional manipulation, orchestrated, I suspect, by my mother, who believed family unity was a virtue that superseded all others, including decency and respect. The calls and texts from Susan stopped, replaced by a more insidious form of pressure. My father called, his voice heavy with disappointment. "You're tearing your mother apart, Clara," he said. "Is your pride really worth that?" I tried to explain that it wasn't about pride, but about protection and principle. He didn't seem to understand the distinction. "She's your sister," was his only repeated rebuttal, as if those 3 words were a magical incantation that could erase any transgression. My brother-in-law, Susan's husband, sent me a long, condescending email about the importance of forgiveness, quoting scriptures he otherwise never paid mind to. He wrote about how his son had been punished enough by the family tension, and that my continued refusal to engage was teaching Olivia a lesson in holding grudges. He never once mentioned Olivia's feelings, or the violence of his son's actions. The entire narrative was twisted to paint me as the villain, the cold-hearted grudge holder disrupting the family's peace. For a moment, I wavered. Was I being too harsh? Was I, in fact, destroying my family over a haircut? The weight of their collective disapproval was immense. But then I would look at Olivia. Her pixie cut had become a part of her. She'd wake up, ruffle it with her hands, and smile at her reflection in the mirror. Her confidence had blossomed in a way I hadn't anticipated. At school, she told her friends what had happened, and to her surprise, they rallied around her. They told her the new haircut was awesome and that her cousin was a bully. She was learning in real time that standing up for yourself, even when it's hard, earns you respect. She was not the victim in her own story anymore. Every time I saw that renewed light in her eyes, my resolve hardened like steel. The true test came 2 months later, with the annual Thanksgiving dinner on the horizon. My mother called, her tone bright and artificially cheerful. "Everyone will be here," she announced. "It will be a wonderful opportunity for you and Susan to finally put the silliness behind you. I've already spoken with her, and she's willing to forgive you for being so cold." I was so stunned by the audacity of her statement that I laughed. It was a short, bitter sound. "She's willing to forgive me? Are you hearing yourself, Mom? Clara, please," she begged, her voice dropping into a familiar, pleading whine. "Don't do this. Don't make me choose. It's Thanksgiving." "I'm not making you do anything," I said, my voice calm. "But Olivia and I will not be there. We will not sit at a table and pretend that what happened is okay. We will not subject ourselves to a woman who finds my daughter's pain amusing and a family that enables her. We will be having our own Thanksgiving, a peaceful one." The decision felt like a monumental weight lifting off my shoulders. I was choosing my daughter's well-being and my own peace of mind over a forced, toxic performance of family harmony. That Thanksgiving, Olivia and I made a small turkey for just the 2 of us. We watched movies, ate pumpkin pie on the couch, And I didn't have to spend a single second bracing for a backhanded compliment or a passive-aggressive sigh. It was the most peaceful holiday I'd had in years. About a week later, there was a knock on my door. I opened it to find Susan standing on my porch. It was the first time I had seen her since that day at the party. She looked different, thinner, with dark circles under her eyes. For a fleeting moment, I felt a pang of something that might have been pity. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice raspy. I hesitated, then stepped aside. I would hear her out. I owed myself that closure. We sat in the living room, a chasm of silence between us. "The family's a mess," she began, twisting the strap of her purse. "Mom cries all the time. Dad's angry. It's all anyone talks about." I waited, saying nothing. "I'm sorry," she finally said, the words sounding rusty and unused. She looked at me, her eyes searching mine for a reaction. "I'm sorry, okay? Can we just be done with this now? I miss you. I miss my sister." I studied her face. The words were there, but the meaning was absent. It was an apology born of her own discomfort, not of any empathy for my child. "What are you sorry for, Susan?" I asked quietly. She looked taken aback. "What do you mean?" "I'm sorry for all of it. The whole situation." "Are you sorry that your son took a pair of scissors and cut off a chunk of my daughter's hair?" I pressed. "It was a stupid kid thing to do, Clara." "Of course I wish it hadn't happened," she said, her voice gaining an edge of frustration. "Are you sorry that you laughed?" I asked, my voice still level. "Are you sorry that you stood there and mocked my 8-year-old daughter while she sobbed because she had been assaulted and humiliated?" Her face hardened. "You always have to be so dramatic, don't you? Assaulted? Really?" I said I was sorry. "What more do you want from me? You want me to grovel? You've made your point. You cut me off. You ruined Thanksgiving. You won. Are you happy now?" And there it was, the raw, unvarnished truth. She saw this as a contest, a power struggle that I had won. She felt no remorse for what had happened to Olivia, only resentment for the consequences that had befallen her. She hadn't come here for forgiveness. She had come for absolution, to wipe her own slate clean so she could stop feeling the discomfort of being ostracized. I stood up. "Thank you for coming, Susan," I said, my voice imbued with a strange, calm finality. "It has clarified things for me. I think you should go." She stared at me, her mouth agape. "So that's it? After all these years? You're just throwing me away?" "I'm not throwing you away," I said, walking to the door and opening it. "I'm choosing to protect my daughter. I'm choosing to protect myself. Some things, once they are broken, can't be fixed. Not because of a lack of forgiveness, but because of a lack of remorse. Goodbye, Susan." She left, slamming the door behind her, and this time, the sound didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a beginning. The beginning of a life where I was the gatekeeper of my own peace, where my daughter's safety and emotional well-being were the unshakable foundation of our world. My family, I realized, wasn't just the one I had been born into. It was the one I had created in that moment, in that quiet, peaceful house, with the little girl upstairs who was sleeping soundly, confident in the knowledge that her mother would always be her shield.